From the News Center, this is News Channel 8 Today.
Good morning. I'm Lauren Make. Thanks for joining us today. We're talking politics this morning. To say the race for the White House in 2016 is crowded is an understatement. Big name politicians across the country are gearing up to run for president. From U.S. Senator Marco Rubio to former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton, the race is heating up. Former Florida Governor Jeb Bush is prepping for a major announcement. Tomorrow, he's expected to make his bid for the 2016 presidential race in Miami. While in Europe last week, reporters asked Bush how he plans to attract voters. He said he wanted to be, quote, authentic and genuine. Former Florida Governor Bob Martinez is joining us now to talk a little politics this morning. I want to talk first about Jeb Bush. He was your Commerce Secretary. Take me back. Tell me why you chose him.
Well, I got to know Jeb back in sometime in 1985 when I first started to run for governor of the state of Florida. And Jeb at that time was the chair of the Republican Party in Dade County. And he had taken over the chair when there had been a lot of disarray among the executive committee of the local party. So he took it over, brought order to it, grew the party. And obviously, when you campaign, you go around to meet all your party directors. And although they can't get involved in the primary, we developed a relationship. Oddly enough, I knew his father before I knew him. While I was mayor of Tampa, I had met his dad at the White House several times. So I actually met him before I met Jeb. And then, of course, he got heavily involved in my campaign once I got the nomination in September of '86. And was one of my top campaigners back then. He also got the president, the vice president, which was his father, to hold a major fundraiser for him in Miami sometime in October. I don't recall the date at this time. And he just had good people skills. He was in business, so he knew a lot of the business community in the state of Florida. And I thought he'd make a great Secretary of Commerce, and he accepted my offer. And he stayed with me until his dad got deep into the presidential campaign, then he went on to campaign full-time.
And as I've been talking to people about him, there seems to be a difference about how folks in Florida who were here while he was governor and while he served statewide, how they remember him, and then how people are viewing him outside of Florida. How good of a job is he and his team doing at telling his story?
Well, the bar was set real high for him to begin with because he's got the name Bush. So if you don't score 100%, you look down that somehow something's flawed. The truth of the matter, you have to go back to when his brother ran, George W. He had to fight for it. If you go back to the primaries back in 2000, you'll find that he had, because I was heavily involved in that campaign, you find that he fought, he lost primaries, he finally got the momentum and won. So just because your father was a president doesn't necessarily translate that you'll be the favorite to begin with. They always put you in a front runner status because of your name and the relationship to a president. And I think the same thing happened with Jeb, that there were these expectations, everybody would blow away and no one wanted to compete. Well, that didn't happen with George W. He had to compete, lost primaries, and finally started to win the primaries and got nominated. So I don't think it's any different for Jeb than it was for his brother more than 12 years ago now.
So do you expect at one point that there will be sort of a click for him and he will pull out? Because right now he's been kind of in the midst of the front-running pack.
Well, what happens, too, is that each time someone announces, they take the week's news, and which is normal. Now, he's been out organizing for the campaign while a good number of his opponents are seeking to be supported by networks and donors. So they need unpaid media as much as possible to get themselves known. Jeb doesn't need that. He's got a Rolodex a mile long. And as a result, he's been in the private environment more than the public environment, like his opponents have been. I'm not saying that's bad. I'm just saying he didn't need to do that. He's out there organizing state by state, because in a primary, you're really running 50 elections. It isn't one election. You're running 50 elections, and all have variances based on what part of the country you're campaigning in. That takes one heck of a network to succeed. And that's where I think he's been. He's been in that ground game, getting ready, plus raising a lot of money.
And, you know, you mentioned the name Bush, and some people see that as a negative for him or as a challenge. When I was in Iowa, someone mentioned that to me as one of his biggest challenges. But that Bush network is also really important. How important is it? It goes back far.
As I said, you know, it's multi-generation. You know, his grandfather was also involved with politics, if you go that far back. And so he had you know, in every state he has people that know the Bush name that have worked with Bush in the past. And that's a great advantage. Do you have to live with the name Bush? You certainly do. But the last poll I saw, I think now President George W. Bush was looked upon more favorably than the current president. So those things began to even out. And of course, if Hillary Clinton is the nominee, well, that's also a legacy name with its own background problems. So that kind of evens out. I think it would be a greater issue if the Democrats had a top-notch, new-face candidate. Then you can see the old line, the old Washingtonians, the old families, all this just dominating American politics. But that's not going to happen.
How hard is the Bush-Rubio decision for folks right now? I've talked to some folks about that.
Well, it'll be difficult, and in Florida, without any doubt. You know, they both are very popular. They both have been very successful. They're both are very competent. So
it's a tough decision for some folks who know both of them.
It will be. I know Senator Rubio. I don't know him obviously as well as I know former Governor Jeb Bush, but they're clearly, it's a very unique thing. Not only the same state, same city. That's even more unique that both of them are, you know, live in the same city and our great state. So it will be difficult.
Former Florida Governor Bob Martinez, thanks so much for joining us this morning. We really appreciate your perspective.
Thank you.
So how is Jeb Bush faring in the polls with his friend and fellow Republican Senator Marco Rubio? A new survey from St. Leo University asks Florida Republicans who they would vote for. Well, 30% said they would vote for Bush. 24% said they would support Senator Rubio. That is actually a big jump for Rubio since March. Democrat Hillary Clinton hosted her first major rally and for the first time is publicly outlining her campaign. Jay Gray has a closer look at how this race is getting personal for her.
It was the first major rally of her second run at the White House. Hillary Rodham Clinton reaching out to the working class, she says, has been left out of the ongoing economic recovery.
Democracy can't be just for billionaires and corporations.
During a 45-minute speech on New York's Roosevelt Island, the early Democratic frontrunner looked to define her campaign, touching on a list of economic and social issues and taking a swipe at the growing Republican field, while pointing out the history she could bring to the White House.
Well, I may not be the youngest candidate in this race, but I will be the youngest woman president in the history of the United States. And the first grandmother as well.
The race is more personal this time. Her husband and daughter by her side as she shared the story of her mother's struggles as a teenager on her own, as she has online and in small private campaign stops before today.
I can still hear her saying, life's not about what happens to you. It's about what you do with what happens to you. So get back out there.
Which is exactly what she did in front of more than 4,000 supporters today. Jay Gray, NBC News, New York.
Clinton will now hit the campaign trail again, heading to Iowa, New Hampshire, South Carolina, and Nevada. Still ahead this morning. Why a mayor from Arizona is forgiving the woman who purposely got him with a taser. With the big Jeb Bush announcement pending and the race shaping up, we are lucky to have some help breaking it down today. Joining us this morning are Republican strategist Adam Goodman, president and CEO of the Victory Group, and Democrat and former Congressman Jim Davis. Good morning to both of you, and thank you so much for joining us. Want to get right in talking about Jeb Bush. Adam, I'll start with you. A lot of folks really just considered him a candidate this whole time, even though officially he has not been. What are we going to see different after 3 o'clock tomorrow?
Well, it becomes real now as the campaign actually becomes officially a campaign. Jeb is going to have to start introducing himself. It's funny to say a Bush introducing himself to America. Jeb
maybe outside of Florida.
Maybe outside of Florida. Jeb is a different kind of person. I think it's going to become very obvious. And his track record in Florida in particular, as Jim would probably agree, is going to be front and center. Where he cut taxes, created jobs, education reforms, did a lot of stuff. He kind of fits the mold, I think, for what people are looking for. And I think tomorrow's announcement you should look for, and I think you in your interview with Governor Martinez addressed that, authenticity. People are looking for someone genuine, real, that can also lead. And I think Jeb's first hurdle is to show that starting prime time tomorrow afternoon.
And certainly his time as governor is something he's going to be talking about on the trail, but it's also something other folks are going to be talking about as well. We're even recently this week, we started to hear things about some of his previous comments about unwed mothers. That was cropping up. What from his time here in Florida do you expect him to have some challenges with?
I think education reform is going to be one. One of the legacies of his service as governor is the standardized testing in Florida, which has really been a disaster. And it has united Democrats, Republicans, people that like and dislike Common Core. And he's responsible for that. When the teachers said you're going too far, he disagreed with them, pushed even harder, disregarded parents and children that were suffering. And we're still suffering from that. I think we're going to hear a lot about that because that's part of his legacy.
I see you wanted to jump in there. Go ahead.
I think what Jeb did on education was transformational for Florida. The results, the test scores are better. The performance is better. People want accountability, and they want our children to be able to compete moving into the future. I think Jeb looks forward to that discussion. And as I think you also said earlier in the show, he wants to be that guy who generally puts his ideas on the table and says, bring it. If you disagree, you have a better idea, let's hear about it. But our kids need something better than they're getting today, and that's where he is.
You know, and I asked Governor Martinez a little bit about how good of a job he and his team are doing at telling his Florida story. Is the Jeb Bush that you're seeing on the campaign trail, is that the Jeb Bush you remember?
No, because because what I laugh about is they say he's not a conservative. Jeb Bush is a conservative. He's a principled conservative, but the goalposts have moved. In this Republican primary, what used to be a conservative is considered a moderate now. So that's what's changed. But I think he hasn't been out on the campaign trail for a while. He's not used to people challenging him. He really wasn't challenged that much as governor. He usually didn't handle it very well. So I think this is a new experience for him. But I think his record in Florida is going to be paramount because what he did, not just what he says, is going to be the best way to measure what kind of president he would be.
We are also hearing from Hillary Clinton this weekend. We saw the big rally that she had yesterday. And, you know, we have not seen her in Florida doing any public appearances here. She was here not too long ago, but she didn't have any public events. How long is she going to be able to wait before she does that?
Oh, she's going to need to get out there. And it
soon?
I don't know what soon is. I mean, it's still pretty early, but I think reasonably soon. But she will be a better candidate. And the same is true of Jeb Bush and any other candidates. These folks need to get out there. They grow on the campaign trail. They need to get away from the insiders, all the fundraising, talk to people. A lot of people need a reason to go out and vote right now on both sides. People are pretty disenchanted. So I think it will be good for them as candidates. It'll be good for us as Floridians and citizens that these candidates are out there.
Well, and we, you know, obviously there's a lot of talk here about Jeb Bush and Marco Rubio, and then, you know, Hillary Clinton at one point we may see here, we expect to see here, but what about the other candidates, especially on the Republican side? There are quite a few of them. Do you expect that they will actually build organizations here in Florida, or will they kind of cede it to Jeb Bush and Marco Rubio?
That's a great question. We look a lot right now, Lauren, at polls, and people say, well, who's up and who's not? There was a recent poll in New Hampshire showing Jeb doing well. Then there was a poll before that showing a four-way tie. There's a big number, but it's not a poll number. It's on a calendar, and that number is March 15th. On March 15th, for the first time, there will be a winner-take-all primary. The Republicans are allowing for the first time winner-take-all primaries, and it will happen in 5 different states, not just Florida, but also Ohio, Illinois, Wisconsin, and Missouri. 328 delegates altogether. That's when it really starts to count in terms of the numbers. Before then, we've got this great audition called the debates. And I think a lot of careers are going to be made and broken starting in August when the first debate takes place.
The winner-take-all primary, good or bad?
I think it's good in the sense that there's going to, I think on March 16th.
Depending on who you're rooting for, probably good or bad.
On March 16th, there'll be a number of candidates who are packing their bags for the next town and others who are packing to go home. I think that's good because at some point you have to bring this nomination in for a landing. I think Americans will have a good taste of the field at that point, and they can start to make an informed and maybe final decision.
Congressman, good or bad?
I think it's good because this is massively confusing. I mean, right now people are taking the view, why not run for president? Donald Trump, some of these U.S. senators. So I think it's very confusing for the voter. It's hard for the media to cover these folks. And at some point, there's going to be a discussion and a choice between 2 very competing views. If Jeb Bush is the nominee, he and Hillary Clinton are going to have some very different views. And they're both serious people, and they want to talk about ideas. And this is a great chance for us as a country to work through some of these issues and make some choices and ultimately pick the character. And you need to put these people under a microscope to pick the character of the candidate.
I agree with Jim that it's time for an adult conversation. This country really needs to take a very hard look at a number of things. That's where I think Jeb does well. I think it's where Hillary does well. I have to give her credit. I thought she had a good day yesterday. She's very good at choreography. Let's see how she is when she goes hand-to-hand in this campaign.
We'll see how long it stays adult. Jim Davis, Adam Goodman, thank you so much for joining us this morning. Well, politicians are taking social media into their own hands, and now they're using Snapchat more than ever to try to get your vote. Coming up, we'll show you how it works in the 2016 election. They're already in your Twitter feed and they're posting on Facebook, but now politicians are delving into a new kind of social media to get your vote, Snapchat.
Politicians are usually hoping their ideas stick. But these days, some are using messages designed to disappear.
Yeah, as the people watch it, they have about 30 seconds or so to watch it, and then it leaves their feed.
To use it, download the app and pick your friends to follow. Or ask your teenager for advice.
So, have you used Snapchat?
Yes, I have.
Do you use it a lot?
I do.
18-year-old Caitlin Gonzalez uses it with friends.
We use it to communicate, like keep it updates.
But what about communicating with Marco Rubio, Rand Paul? They're on Snapchat too, looking to reach young people who are already hooked. Jonathan Torres is with the Republican Party of Florida.
Do you think this helps your brand as well? Just makes the Republican Party seem a little bit more hip?
I don't think that's really our angle. Like, that's something, we're not trying to do it as a way to brand ourselves. It's more about getting our messaging out there.
If you checked out the message today on what's called a Snapchat story, you'd find
these are not your candidates. I see Hillary Clinton. I see Bill Clinton here.
Yeah, so here it's, Hillary Clinton talking about her reputation as someone who's trustworthy, and then Bill Clinton follows it up by laughing.
But catch it quick. It'll be gone soon.
Now, a spokesman for the Florida Democratic Party tells me they are not using Snapchat right now because they don't feel that it is the best way to reach most Floridians. Well, coming up after the break, why a mayor is letting a woman use a taser on him. It's not often local political disagreements end in violence. The mayor of Glendale got zapped by a taser by a Coyotes fan upset over the recent contract fight. But Greg Argos reports the takedown is all for a good cause.
Taser, taser, taser.
Oh, sweet revenge.
Go, look where we out.
The Coyotes fan we all met Wednesday night, who laid into Glendale Mayor Jerry Wires.
What you're doing is childish, it's pathetic, and it's just disrespectful.
Tased him Saturday during a fundraiser for the 100 Club.
Oh, God, that was really nerve-wracking. I was okay right up until he said to pull the trigger, so.
The stunt was actually the mayor's idea. $10,000 towards the 100 Club, an organization that helps the families of fallen first responders.
The only way to get people interested is you got to do something a little crazy, right?
And until this morning, that donation amount wasn't met.
I got a call about 9 o'clock this morning. Apparently someone made an anonymous donation, and it all kind of took off from there, and it was very, very last minute.
So the takedown everyone is watching ends with no hard feelings.
I'm just really glad he's okay. I was concerned when he went down.
I don't have any misgivings about it. I have no angst towards the lady that pulled the trigger.
Go, let me out.
I don't even know what to say about all that. Well, thank you so much for joining us this morning. We hope you enjoyed our first political show of the season. Our next newscast today is at noon, and we will see you then. Have a great one, everyone.